Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Saira Gul and today we're going to talk about the topic of fungi. So let's start with the introduction. Fungi are eukaryotic organisms that include microorganisms such as yeasts, molds and mushrooms. So these organisms, these yeasts and molds and mushrooms, they're placed under the kingdom fungi. They are classified as heterotrophs, meaning they solely depend upon nutrients from other organisms for their metabolism. With the exception of yeasts, fungi are multicellular. So the yeasts are unicellular and the rest are multicellular organisms, the molds and the mushrooms. Most fungi reproduce with sexual and asexual spores. Let's talk about some general characters of fungi. Fungi are eukaryotic, non-vascular, non-motile, and obviously, as I said, heterotrophic organisms. They may be unicellular or they may be filamentous. The yeasts are unicellular while the rest are filamentous. They reproduce by means of spores. These fungi, they lack chlorophyll and so they cannot perform photosynthesis. That is why they are placed under the group of heterotrophs. Since they do not have chlorophyll and they cannot perform their process of photosynthesis, cannot make their food, so they are heterotrophs. Fungi store their food in the form of starch. The mode of reproduction is sexual as well as asexual. Some fungi are parasitic and so they can infect the host. Example, as I said, include mushroom molds and yeasts. So here we have a picture of bread mold. Here you can see the spores and the sporangiophore, sporangium, and we have the rhizoids and the stolon. Structure of fungi. Almost all fungi have a filamentous structure except the yeast cells, since yeasts are unicellular. They can be either single-celled, the yeasts are single-celled, or they may be multicellular. The rest of the molds and the mushroom fungi are all multicellular organisms. These fungi consist of long thread-like structures known as hyphae, and these hyphae, they together form a mesh-like structure that is called as mycelium. So many fungi combine together to form a mycelium. The fungi possess a cell wall which is made up of chitin and polysaccharides. So they are cell wall containing eukaryotic organisms. The other eukaryotes do not have a cell wall like human. We are eukaryotes and our cells are surrounded by a cell membrane and not by a cell wall. But the fungi, they are eukaryotes but they have a cell wall like the prokaryotic bacteria. But unlike prokaryotic bacteria, their cell wall is not made up of peptidoglycan, rather it is made up of chitin and polysaccharides. So the cell wall of the fungi comprises protoplast, and that protoplast is differentiated into different cell parts like cell membrane and cytoplasm, organelles and nuclei. The nucleus is dense, clear, with chromatin threads and is surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Classification. There are different modes on which fungi can be classified. So we can classify fungi on the basis of the mode of nutrition. So on the basis of the mode of nutrition, fungi can be classified into three groups. First one, saprophytic. So the fungi obtain their nutrition by feeding on dead organic substances. The saprophytic fungi, they feed upon dead organic substances to obtain their nutrition, and this group include fungi like Rhizopus, Penicillium and Aspergillus. Then we have another group on the basis of the mode of nutrition. We can place them in parasitic group. They are parasites, and these parasitic fungi, they obtain their nutrition obviously by living on other living organisms. They may be plants or animals, and so they absorb their nutrients from their host. Such fungi include examples like Taphorina and Puccinia. Then we have another group on the basis of the mode of nutrition. We can classify them as symbiotic fungi. And these fungi, obviously, since they are symbionts, they have an interdependent relationship with other species in which both are mutually benefited. Such symbiotic relationships include lichens and mycorrhizae. Lichens are the symbiotic association between algae and fungi. When there is an association, a symbiotic association between an algae and a fungi, that association is called a lichen. And both these algae and fungi are mutually benefited, obviously, since it is a symbiotic relationship, so they are both mutually benefited such that the fungi provide shelter for the algae, and in reverse the algae synthesizes carbohydrates for the fungi, since fungi are heterotrophic and they cannot perform the process of photosynthesis, so they need ready-made food that is provided by the algae. And in case of Mycorrhizae, the association is between a green plant and a fungus. The association between plants and fungi is called the mycorrhizal association. And in this case, the plant makes organic molecules, that is, it makes food for the fungi, organic molecules such as sugar, by performing the process of photosynthesis. And in return, the fungi supplies water and mineral nutrients such as phosphorus taken from the soil. Then fungi can also be classified on the basis of their spore formation. So on the basis of the spore formation, fungi can be classified as zygomycetes. These zygomycetes are formed by fusion of two different cells. The sexual spores are called zygospores, while the asexual spores are known as sporangiospores. The hyphae are without the septa. So the hyphal septa is actually are actually the dividers between the cells, and the septa have openings called pores between the cells to allow the flow of cytoplasm and nutrients through the myceliums. So where were we? Alright, so the sexual spores are known as zygospores, while the asexual spores are known as sporangiospores. The hyphae are without the septa, and so the hyphae are without the septa. Example include rhizopus. Then we have ascomycetes. They're also called as sac fungi. They can be decomposers, parasitic, or they may be saprophytic. The sexual spores are called ascospores. Asexual reproduction occurs by kinetiospores, for example Saccharomyces. Then we have another group on the basis of their spore formation. We have another group that is called basidiomycetes. These mushrooms are the most commonly found mushroom fungi, and they mostly live as parasites. Sexual reproduction occurs by basidiospores. Asexual reproduction occurs by conidia, budding, or maybe fragmentation. Example include agaricus. Then we have deuteriomycetes. They are otherwise called as imperfect fungi, such as since they do not follow the regular reproduction cycle as are the fungi. They do not reproduce sexually. Asexual reproduction occurs by conidia, and example includes trichoderma. Thank you.